All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Colton, are you aware of any announcements?
There will be one. The mayor has a little brief presentation he's going to give.
Brief, that's the key, right? You got your handouts here. I asked for just a little bit of time to share with you the strategic plan that I presented to City Council as part of my State of the City. I just wanted to give you a few highlights, if that's okay, and kind of tell you some of the purpose behind this. And this shows my age, but one of an illustration I thought of is I remember the first time I was old enough to go visit other churches with my friends, and I realized that every church had its own hymnal. Before that, I thought, everybody sang out of the one I sang out of, right? And so part of what I've tried to do here is get us singing from the same hymnal. This document and the ideas here came from about 9 months of listening. We did Scott Staples, my mentor, and we did a listening tour. And then I just kind of spent the rest of the year continuing to kind of listen and tried to see what bubbled to the top that kind of kept coming up over and over. And so this is the idea that we can coalesce around the same hymnal. We've got four pillars there. This kind of sets the stage for 25 and 26. This team of elected officials, that's the 2 years we've got together. So just kind of setting the stage for that. We've got the first pillar is our vision. One of the things we're introducing is a cash reserve policy. I had the pleasure of having lunch with Mayor Howley several months ago, and I asked him. I said, "Mayor, what did y'all do with your cash reserves back then?" He said, "Well, Chris, we didn't have any cash reserves. What are you talking about?" So we're starting to think about Bryant that we have now is not always going to be the Bryant of the future. So how do we start preparing for that? And that's one of the things you'll see that if you look at the council finance report, you'll see these numbers on the finance report. And nothing's going to be done officially. We're just going to start tracking these different things if we were to start using those cash reserves in a strategic way. The second this will be big for you guys. We want to launch a comprehensive growth and land use plan. My friend Richard McCowan said it well. Let's make sure growth happens not just to Bryant, but for Bryant. So you'll be hearing more about that, and obviously we'll be asking a lot of you in the next couple of years as we work on that. And then not a surprise to you, water, wastewater infrastructure is going to be a big focus. Leadership through transparency and trust. We're really trying to be proactive in our communication with residents and over communicate. Mayor's memorandum, I don't know if you've seen that yet, but you'll if you don't get our email, you should be getting emails from the city. This is one you'll get every month. It's a snapshot of everything going on that happened the month before. Committee and commission minutes. Each department head does a report. Basically, what we want to be able to give residents is a picture, and this is communicated to council. It's kind of an insider look, but we want everybody to see it. Council wrap-up videos basically give us 4 minutes. We'll give you the highlights, and if you're a council nerd and want to watch the whole meeting, well, there's a link for you there. And all educational videos. Each department, we're working on educational videos to communicate how the city runs, what's going on. We've had a good feedback from surveys that have gone well the last year. And so we want to up that. We want to continue to get people's engagement. Simple, effective ways, without a lot of time and energy, people can tell us what they're thinking and what their priorities are. Problem solving. The issues that we've got to face yesterday. Funding for stormwater utility, streets, and police and fire pension. I'll be asking City Council to create a subcommittee to look into these 3 funding issues. It's going to take at least a year, just so you kind of know that we all see these things need to be dealt with, right? Everybody knows we got some funding issues when it comes to these three. And we talk about them, but when we talking about how we're gonna pay for them, right? Everybody sees them, when we start talking about how we're gonna pay for it, that's when it gets tricky. So our team, we have a plan for each of these, and so we're gonna be bringing those plans to that subcommittee. That way, those conversations are happening in public. People that may not agree with our plan, at least they know why we're doing what we're doing, right? And they have a chance to speak up. And then our fourth pillar, economic development. Saline County Economic Development Commission, very engaged there, and the Greater Bryant Chamber of Commerce. As you know, I hope you know, the City Council will be making a decision Thursday night about a ballot initiative, potential entertainment venue that would be, my time's up, that would be an economic driver for the city. And then finally, the last thing I want to mention is Bless Bryant, which is somewhat new. We're working with the city, Family Life Ministries, and the Bryant High School Student Senate are going to be working throughout the year so that in the month of September, we'll be pairing volunteers around the community with nonprofits that serve our community. So basically a way for us to kind of continue what's great about Bryant is our willingness to serve. And as you guys know, that's where we come together as a community, serving other people. I was thinking about this the other day. I don't know how many, I can't remember really, a long conversation with my dad over a cup of coffee, but I remember a lot of conversations hanging sheetrock. Just something about it when you're working together is when you kind of get to talking and sharing things. And so that's kind of the heart of that. You'll be hearing more about that in the future. But anyway, I'm hitting all the committees and commissions just so you know what's going on. If you've got any questions, if you want to delve into any of this, please reach out. People in the community that come to you and say, hey, I heard about this. And you tell them to email me, right? It's crucial that you know what's going on so that you can have conversations with your residents and your wards, with your friends and other stakeholders that may not even live in the city but are important to the city of Bryant. We want to make sure everybody knows what we're trying to do, what's going on. And my door is always open. Quickest way is email me. Don't call my desk phone. Email me. I'm always checking my email, but I definitely want to hear any concerns or questions folks may have about this. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other announcements, Colton?
There's no other announcements.
Well, if Ted was making a move.
Getting the speakers.
He's grabbing the speaker.
It's Mayor Treat went over his allocated time. All right, our DRC report, I'll read it tonight since Andrew is out sick, but 2714 Laverne Drive, conditional use permit, Vanessa Guru, requesting recommendation for approval of conditional use permit for duplex, recommended approval based on completing the public hearing requirements. Item 3, 2711 Spring Hill Road, rezoning from C1 to C2. Muhammad Tariq requesting recommendation for rezoning from C1 to C2. Recommend approval based on completing public hearing requirements. Item 4, 2711 Spring Hill Road, conditional use permit. Muhammad Tariq requesting a recommendation for approval of CUP, a conditional use permit for the use of an automobile sales and leasing small lot. Recommended approval based on completing public hearing requirements. Item 5, Panera Bread, 23146 I-30, site plan approval. Craft and Toll requesting site plan approval. It was approved at DRC, contingent upon remaining comments being addressed. Item 6, D1 Training, 1800 North Centers Road, a sign permit. Arkansas Sign and Neon requesting a sign permit. Was staff approved. Item 7, Empire Vape and Smoke Shop, 319 Bryan Avenue, a sign permit. Arrow Signs requesting sign permit approval. Was staff approved. And then item 8, Sherman Williams, 4000 Highway 5 North, Suite number 1, was a sign permit. Arkansas Sign and Neon was requesting the sign permit approval, and it was staff approved. So that is our DRC report. We'll have a public hearing tonight with 3 items on the public hearing. Little format, staff will present it to the group. And then the planning commission will have the opportunity to ask staff any questions. We'll open it up for any comments from the applicant, and then it'll be open to the public for any comments for or against or questions. The applicant will have the opportunity to rebut any of those comments, and then, we'll look at calling for a vote. 2 of them, I'll say this up front, are involving the same property. One's a rezone, which is a use, and then one is in that type of zone. There'll be a conditional use, which we could talk about conditions of that use at that time. So, item 9, which is the first public hearing item, 2714 Laverne Drive, conditional use permit. And I know I'm butchering this name, but Vanessa Guerra, requesting approval for conditional use permit for a duplex. And we'll let staff go ahead, if you want to, whatever opportunity you can come forward, but Colton, are you leading?
Yes, I can start off this one.
Okay.
So this is approval for conditional use permit for a duplex. The zoning over there is RM, which allows for duplexes, but you have to have a conditional use permit. And it's for the purpose of converting the house into a 2-unit dwelling. So it won't be, I don't think it's going to be a standard duplex, but basically a sectioned off portion that's already kind of separated out. That'll be a separate unit here on this house. This is the location of it right here, off of Laverne, kind of close to the intersection of Laverne and Valley View Drive. And there is a recommendation to approve based on the completed application.
Any questions of staff? Everything they're doing is, we'll ask this of the applicant too, but under the same roof, correct? It's just so the footprint doesn't change.
That's
Colton, what are the driveway or parking requirements? I mean, at one point it used to be 3 per unit. I think it's now 2 per unit. Is that correct? Or is there a?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I can look that up though. For sure.
Okay, it's not same as Heart of Bryan. It would be probably under R1. I think it's 2 now. Which would require 4 places. 2 per tenant.
I mean,
So based on that picture, park is going to be added to it.
Well,
That may be a question maybe for that.
that additional drive to the south of it, you see that long narrow piece, that is part of the property too.
Where's the other part?
They have outside parking out front, so it looks like they could potentially have 4 parking spaces already inside.
Is that
This
just,
is this is all drive here.
is that just on dirt, or what is that above there where they got parking now?
That I believe is just dirt. This is all concrete down here though.
Yeah.
and if the conditional use is approved without any other conditions, and it would have to conform with whatever our ordinance requires. I'm gonna let the applicant come forward. Ms. Guerra? Am I saying that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. They were talking about the parking, and potentially there's four required parking spaces,
Per dwelling.
2 per dwelling.
Mhm.
Yeah. Is that,
So, right here, in front of the house where the cars was,
uh-huh,
I have parked 2 parallel by the blue car. You can park 2 cars there. And I don't know if you guys remember, but I was renting a little part right here. You can park another car here. And if more is going to be needed, I can extend this part right here. You have a 3-car garage right here, so this part must be always leave clear for this parking. So, yeah, they can have on the top, there are 2 parkings, and they can have the garage as well, or park in the front.
So you could get 2 at each location,
Yeah,
basically, 3 at
easy.
one.
Okay.
And still have a park.
That was one of the questions. Any other questions of the staff or applicant?
So would some type of parking service be put down instead of just parking on dirt?
Sir, what do you mean?
Well, it looks like you park on dirt now on the front.
Yeah, I would like to have like pavers, all that part.
Ma'am, are you gonna continue to live at this residence? This is your residence too?
Yes,
Okay.
So you're gonna live in one dwelling and rent the duplex?
have my dad out upstairs, yes.
So Jim, they said there was 3, she said it's a 3-car garage, which you
Mhm.
would assume there's, without seeing the front of it, 3 parking spots there. And if required, she could add a 4th where that notch is out right there.
I just know there's some houses there on, in the Carywood, Chelsea area that they're parking in the yard now.
Yeah.
And
That-
it's become a mud hole. And I just want to see if that's going to be the case here.
I mean, at first glance, it looks like there's already sufficient parking for 4 spots on site.
Yeah.
Whether they use that out front or just use the carport.
Use the carport.
I can understand putting additional by the carport there, but not in the front like these cars are parked now.
I mean, it looks like you could get 4 parking spaces where the concrete area is
Yes.
already.
I would agree on that.
So you have 3 concrete spaces, and then the other would be grass, so you're willing to put a 4th concrete spot in, or pavered location?
Pavers, I would rather have pavers.
Just like concrete
Yeah.
pavers? So you would be okay if there was a condition that you have to have 4 pavered space, I mean,
4 total.
4
Yeah.
total, counting the 3 that are already concreted, okay? That can solve part of your problem, Jim.
Does
Say again, so it will be 4 more in addition to the.
No, you
No,
have to
no,
have
no,
4.
just 4 total.
Okay,
So we
Or
just need 1 additional
Okay.
area. but
Just saw they were covered with something.
That's
one hard
Grass.
surface.
hard surface down, so.
okay.
Colton was the pavers, will that meet code?
Yes, I mean, there's no regulations on that for residential.
You
use.
could do gravel, or you could do gravel with pavers
Yeah,
or
no,
concrete.
at that point.
Okay.
There's
It's not plain dirt.
Right. As long as there's a solid surface.
Any other concerns?
I believe she's aware, based on DRC, that she has to fire rate between the units, and that'll be inspected by our
Yeah,
code enforcement. She'll have to get all that inspected. We discussed that at DRC.
Yeah, this approval would just be to be able to use it for a duplex.
yes,
You would still have to go through code enforcement for a permit and adhere to all the specifications as far as what you have to build and how.
I already called them once in
Yeah.
the past, so I will call them again so I can
Yeah.
get everything in writing.
Okay. But this is just approving the use of it
Yes, of course.
and any conditions that we may put on that use, so. Any other? Are you gonna do the work yourself or have a contractor do the work?
I've been trying to get a contractor to do the whole thing,
Yeah.
but it's very hard to find people that want to do it, so I guess I'm gonna start contracting like little by little. And
You have
some
to
of the
work with
parts
code
we will
enforcement. I
do
mean,
them.
you, as the property owner, you live there, you have the right to do that, but,
You still have to pull the permit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
You still have to pull the permit.
Oh, yes, of course.
okay. Any other questions on the use as a duplex, any exterior? Okay, we'll open it up for public comment right now, which we'll let anybody in the public say anything if there's anyone here for that. And then, if there are any comments, then you would have the right to come back up and address those.
Okay.
Thank you. So is there anyone in the public here tonight that speak for, against, question anything about this use for a duplex? It's a public hearing, so if you're here, come to the podium. All right, I see nobody making a move, so, we're gonna have a roll call vote that would have a condition that there would be 4 hard surface parking areas, whether it be gravel, pavers, whatever.
Okay.
Would be a condition of the conditional use approval for a duplex. Does everybody understand? Okay, roll call vote.
Johnson?
Yes.
Edwards?
Yes.
Staton?
Yes.
Irwin?
Yes.
Speed?
Yes.
Penfield?
Yes. Okay. If the use passed, but you still need to go to the city and buy your permit, okay?
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Item number 10 of our public hearing, 2711 Spring Hill Road, rezoning from C1 to C2. Mohammed Tariq requesting approval for rezoning from C1 to C2. We'll let Ms. Colton, you leading this one, or Ted?
I can go ahead and start off. The designation is currently C1, which is intended for quiet commercial businesses, usually reserved for home offices and small businesses that. This particular location, they're wanting to be able to sell cars and adjacent to the convenience store. To do that, they do have to go zoning for commercial C2, which allows sales and outdoor display. But even with that, they will need an additional conditional use permit to do that. And I believe the intention here is just to sell cars. We reviewed this at a DRC level. There's no intentions of changing oil, doing detailing, or working on cars. This is merely intended to serve as a car lot.
Can you pull the zoning map up? Overlay or?
Ted, would you read that, what you said about C1 was designed to do what?
They're usually intended for quiet businesses.
Neighborhood-
or commercial
neighborhood
retail.
commercial.
Neighborhood commercial.
At-home businesses and of that nature.
So is the convenience store the C2 right now?
It's not. So the convenience store is gonna be this C1 as well.
The convenience stores fit in C1, or is it a
I
non-conforming?
think it's non-conforming use.
It's pre-existing.
Pre-existing. I think this is that small engine repair.
Right.
That's currently
Yeah.
C2.
C2.
And all those, in fact, I would imagine those businesses were there before the pre-annexation.
And all that, yeah, and all that's still RM behind it, okay.
Ted, give a quick description of C2. I know, but just so everybody knows, what is generally in C2 and the difference between the two.
Retail shops, commercial businesses, things like small institutional businesses like.
Car lots.
Yeah, car lots, not necessarily, but they will require conditional use. That's why they're also asking for.
C2 was, in the day, was highway commercial,
Mhm.
which was, then we added the C3, which became
The
interstate
I-34.
commercial.
Yeah.
put in C2 certain things, and I know you'll remember, but that were conditional use oriented, like car lots.
Yeah.
and
But I'm to understand
self-storage.
C2 also allows a mechanic shop and all of that without a conditional use permit, correct?
That's right.
I believe
So
this-
if they change their mind and they decide they want to do whatever they want to do, they don't have to have a conditional use permit to be able to do the mechanic work, oil changes, car washes, whatever they decide they want to do.
But they also have to have a facility to do it, and they do not currently have that to be able to do oil changes, detailing, those things. And-
I mean, they have a building there.
Mhm.
So the C2, there are certain things by right, like the Jiffy Lubes,
Right.
the things like that, that if someone was gonna buy it and be able to put a Jiffy Lube in there, they would have the right without a conditional use permit.
Right.
So Ted, if they, say, 3 or 4 years goes down the road and they get approved tonight and then 3 or 4 years from now they sell the business,
Mhm.
can a more noisy Jiffy Lube, I don't mean to pick on Jiffy Lube, they're great, but whoever, come in there without, by right, and do what they want to do
Yes.
in this area? That's,
There is definitely a danger to that.
can that happen though? That can.
But if they do a substantial change to the structure, they would also have to come back for a development review committee to review what they're doing. Like I said, we approved this based off of they aren't doing oil changes, they aren't doing that
Right.
because they don't have the utilities to be able to handle that.
But another company comes in and just says, we want to wipe it out, start a building, they could do by right something that wasn't,
That's the use with the C2.
So-
something that wasn't originally intended
So
for.
there's two
Right.
things going on here. The first is a change from C1 to C2.
Right.
So, I mean, the second request is gonna be for conditional use, because car lots aren't allowed. But if we approve C1 to C2, it wouldn't matter if he was doing the other or not. Everything by right that's in our ordinance could be put there.
That's right.
So, I mean, most of the same things you see down Reynolds Road or Highway 5.
Colton, do you mind reading out the definition of C2? I think so we can get a little bit
Yeah.
of clarity on that.
So this district is established for a broad range of retail uses which compromise the commercial function of the city. Permitted uses include most types of retail activity except those involving substantial open displays of merchandise and those which generate large volumes of traffic. This district is characterized by freestanding buildings and ancillary parking. This district should be generally limited to arterial corridors such as Mill Roads and Highway 5.
Yeah, and I want to back up with some more info before we open it up to the applicant. When we did our comprehensive plan on Spring Hill Road, and this was before we had a C3, we had C2 pods, areas designated,
No.
nodes, I said pods, but nodes, close, and I don't know, you may pull that comprehensive plan, I don't know where those nodes are at right now, but we did design in the comprehensive plan, and I'm just curious if it fits that plan or not, because we did have nodes. There was one at Hilltop,
Yep, in North Lake.
North Lake, and I know there was a node right around this Spring Hill activity.
Excuse me.
Is that too hard to grab, Colton?
What was the
There's one close to North Lake, one at Hilltop, one at Hilldale. There's a, I think, potential fire station location, looks like shown in that area.
Between Spring Hill and this, was there any,
What was the purpose of the nodes?
because during the public hearing, the involvement we had, did not want the full length of Spring Hill Road becoming Highway 5 or Reynolds Road.
Okay, they wanted
So-
residential mixed in.
Yeah, because of the amount of traffic and the amount of residences that are down there. And so we wound up in that comprehensive plan doing what we call node areas. They're not, it's like a broad brushstroke, like the streets. Doesn't mean it has to be that exact footprint. It was laid out to where it could expand a little as far as the geography, the terrain and everything in the actual road.
One particular thing that Colton mentioned was in the C2 is it was listed, those areas were listed around areas intended to be arterial, like Highway 5 and I-30. Well, Spring Hill is a minor arterial listed on our master transportation plan.
But pull that up just a little where I can see Spring Hill, Colton, I'm sorry.
All right, try and get my mouse over there.
Which one's Spring Hill?
Spring Hill is right here.
I'm sorry, where you can see where Spring Hill hits Highway
And I
5.
think the property is just south of where that fire station
Yeah.
is located.
That's Spring Hill and Highway 5 intersection right there.
And I thought some of that was where that blue is. Oh, that's comprehensive plan, never mind. Yes,
What does that blue designate?
That is a intended growth, G4.
What type of,
So it's medium density residential mixed use, 10 units per acre maximum.
Doesn't designate any commercial in those areas.
Just mixed use, so it does have commercial. G5 would be the next highest, and that's that darker color blue you see in those small areas. And those are on the map shown as either a mobile home park or apartment complexes currently,
Yeah,
denser areas.
which we allowed apartments from this comprehensive plan, or still allow them, but anyway. So go back to the zoning map real quick. So that blue that goes down behind Circle K.
zoom out a little bit so we can see where the nearest,
Yeah, because there's a dental clinic where that C1 right there.
In the church.
Dental clinic in the church.
Yeah.
Let's see one across the street here.
That's undeveloped currently.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So the nearest C2
Little
is
C2.
down there.
I do have a question. We required the used car lot there where it used to be the Chinese place on Reynolds Road to put a bay in to clean cars when they get dirty. Did we not? There was a bay behind it that they had to do.
they were gonna put the bay in, and they were required to do an oil water separator at that point. They were planning on doing the bay as a wash bay, and then I think it was our requirement to
So-
adhere to our.
So what's this gentleman going to do about washing cars and stuff? Do you get a hose out there and wash them off, or?
I don't know, we'll ask him when we call him
I
up.
guess my other question is, there's zero infrastructure there for, I mean, commercial in my opinion. There's no sewer, there's no anything through that area that is hooked up. They are on a septic tank currently.
That's very clearly what was addressed in DRC, is this facility is not able to wash cars or do oil changes. When we made that clear to the property.
So when we get to the conditional use piece for the car lot, that would be a condition we could put on. But in keeping us on the hearing we're on, I know we're gonna get there.
Yes,
It's probably relative, but this zoning piece of the public hearing would be C1 to C2. Does it fit our comprehensive plan? Is that a use that we want to start approaching closer to that? I mean, at some point, the Erie property behind it, they've had people circle to come in for some different zoning classes for that development.
But that's been for mixed-use residential that they've come in for that for. It hasn't been for things of.
They
this
haven't
nature.
come in, they've talked about doing
Right,
different.
no, I know,
things.
I'm aware.
Well, could you read, because it's C1 now, and could you read what the intended use for C1 is currently?
Yes.
So we know what it should,
So C1 district is to provide areas of low intensity and smaller scale commercial uses within a more pedestrian friendly environment. It is anticipated this district will be located in close proximity to residential uses. This district is characterized by freestanding buildings with minimal front setbacks and ancillary parking. It should generally be limited to collector and arterial street locations excluding Highway 5, Reynolds Road, or I-30, and not intrude into established single-use neighborhoods.
what type of businesses are generally in C1?
So C1 is
Some
generally
examples.
more office spaces,
Insurance.
and more than anything. You could have child or adult care centers, commercial small scale, which is,
We did I think we approved a small animal vet clinic in one.
smaller, like animal clinics. The small scale commercial is a non-drive-through retail, which generally does not exceed 5,000 square foot or 100 trips average during a day. What else? Office small scale, a hotel motel small scale, small institutional, which would fall under that healthcare, personal care such as like a nail salon or a beauty clinic or beauty salon,
Barbershop.
barbershop. And there's other uses, but they're all conditional use after that.
All right, any other questions?
What have we changed from a C1 to a C2 around here?
Some around, I know, I can remember right at the Reynolds Highway 5 intersection, a lot of those that went into West Point used to be C1. And
Okay.
as the highway grew, they were converted to C2. But when you move from a C1 to a C2, and those had to be grandfathered in,
Right.
a lot of that property right there were across where Woolette is and some of that. Mainly, you change the setbacks as far as the buffering between your residential, and a lot of them had to have variances because they don't meet that.
Correct.
And that's locations like that. Some up and down Highway 5, when the road was widened, there were some houses close to Brandon that I think we changed to C2. Most of them on fiber rentals.
Thank you.
There was some, I think I remember one coming down rentals. It was a C1 that they were going to build a medical clinic, and it wound up being changed to C2.
Yes, I mean, that wasn't, maybe 2 years ago.
All right, I'm going to let the applicant come up for questioning, and any comments from him he may can answer. Is Mohammed in?
Enza, is it?
Yeah. And then keep in mind, there are 2 hearings, 2 items. This one's just on going from the C1 to the C2. And then the next one would be about your specific use.
Questions?
You do understand that if the zoning changes, it's a permanent change that could affect the use of that property
In the future?
whether it's for your specific reason or not.
Okay.
And that's the concern.
Yes, sir.
I had a question. Are you planning to build anything, or are you using
No, sir.
existing structure?
But just the building as it is, the property we bought about a year or 2 ago from Mike Theory, he's got the house and everything. So the actual Kwanzaa, it has been there for several years. We only wish to remodel the interior, leave everything as is, so we're not gonna add anything.
Does it have a restroom and things?
Yes, yes, so that's gonna be part of the plan, the restroom, septic tank, but there won't be any water usage or cleaning, oil change, strictly for show and sale, nothing else.
Do you have other locations where you'll be bringing vehicles from and through?
Yeah, so we have our main car dealership on Arch, so, but that has a garage, repair and everything, so, but this is strictly just for sales.
It'll
I
be
have a
staffed?
question for you. Is this what your location at Arch Street looks like with all the cars and it looks like a junkyard from the aerial view? I've
Just
driven
the
by
front.
it, so I mean, I'm just curious.
Yes, ma'am, yeah, so the front is the actual car lot, the back is all storage.
Is that what we're calling storage? It doesn't look like storage, it looks like a
Fenced off.
junkyard.
Well, it's fenced off storage, and we do share that with a different dealership as well.
Let y'all see what his other location
I
looks
guess, I
like.
guess what she's at, I guess her point is it, you know, the appearance of it, or is it gonna be?
No, sir, that's what I'm saying, so this will strictly be the front area, because we don't own the property anywhere else. So
Yeah.
there won't be storage behind, there won't be storage to the side, just inside and front, which will have the gate and fence.
And these will be vehicles that are sold operating and not
Yes,
sold
yes,
for
sir.
parts,
It's not
or
operating.
not junk vehicles?
No, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, that property you're looking at, we've had for a while, so the very back area, that's all storage, extra.
Well, that's
vehicles,
my
parts.
concern is that it doesn't
No, ma'am.
start that way,
No, ma'am.
that it's gonna end up that way.
No, ma'am, no.
And this is in my ward, it's very, very important to me. I've had a lot of phone calls, text messages, and people contacting me, and, you know, I just wanna make sure that that's
Yes.
not what this is gonna turn
No,
into.
ma'am, no, ma'am, yeah.
I do know that you guys, you know, have the convenience store, and that, you know, you've started things without permits in the past, and you had a work stop, and,
Yes, ma'am, yes.
you know, I wanna make sure that you guys are gonna follow
ma'am.
rules.
Yes, ma'am, we will. This is our first business in Bryan, but we had never gone through the process or anything. But we have been residents since 2011, you know, but we live down the road. Me personally, I went to Bryan High, Bryan Middle, you know, Bryan Elementary, all that, so, but this is home. I don't plan on, you know, just letting cars out or having everything run down.
You own a convenience store as well next to it?
Yes, sir.
And you've done,
Just the
you said
convenience
they've
store
done
from
stuff
my
without
area.
permits?
Yeah, they put a stop on it, and then it had to come back through us to be able to continue the work on it.
I think it involves some refrigeration or
Yes, sir,
something
that
in the
was,
back that was being
Yes, sir.
added to or installed. So again, this particular hearing, I'm trying to make notes if we get to the next one, of conditions, and we have the right in that next one, I'll jump forward, to put any condition we want on the use, which would be no storage. I mean, I would think just from comments here, if we get that far, no storage of non-running cars. I mean, it'd be for display purposes only of vehicles. But as far as the rezone from C1 to C2, I mean, there are some requirements that are probably going to hinder you. And I don't know how that works with him being grandfathered in, because you have a heavy setback against the residential that's behind
Yeah,
it.
buffer. Mhm.
And I mean, is there gonna be a needed waiver or
I mean, I think that the buffer's what, 75 feet between it and the additional?
Yes, sir.
layer With a planted buffer?
so if that goes to C2, you have RM, now it could change in the future, I get it, but you also have, I mean, changing it to a different zone starts triggering other things, like a privacy, some type of privacy type thing.
It's in a green buffer.
You have some green buffering, which you have to do between that residential.
Okay.
So, I mean, I haven't measured it, but I mean, you've got is it 75 feet, Colton, from your rear to the residential?
I'll look for the code, quick, confirm that.
That would take quite a bit of that land up, wouldn't it?
And then there's, if that's residential on the south side, there's a side setback buffer also. So I mean, technically, some of those areas you couldn't even use for display, because buffering means green space.
To the previous or in the front of the building?
No, it'd be
In the back
the
and
whole
side.
side that abuts any residential has a certain setback,
So.
and in the
I'm
rear
looking
that
for
abuts any residential.
Would just be the front area. So from the door towards the actual, where the gas station sign would be, so just
Yeah.
adjacent to Spring Hill. And then on the inside, because it is the garage door,
Uh-huh.
that we can use it inside for some vehicles as well. So that way, it's just that small section on the inside and the front, nothing else. So no siding and no rear.
How many vehicles do you anticipate you could get on this lot? At any one, what's the maximum?
Most likely 15 to 20,
How many, I'm sorry?
15 to
Okay.
20, yes, sir.
So, it looks like he has plenty in the rear. What about a side setback, Colton?
It's, where, it abuts the residential, it's 3 times, so that's, 15 normally, so 45.
So he'd have to be 45 feet from that black line that's south of the
It'd
Quonset.
be almost to Kwanzaa Hut, wouldn't it?
Well, it looks like it's about 20 feet, so it looks like it'd go to the middle of the Quonset hut.
Yeah.
I mean, so that in itself, I mean, we're rezoning something to automatically need a variance.
Well, I mean.
And then
I'm
Spring
just
Hill's
speaking-
gonna get widened at some point too.
Well, yeah,
I'm just talking hypothetical here, but if it's 75 feet setback back here with buffer, and then 45 along here, then that looks like there's still available spot there for storage or
yeah.
whatever.
But my fear is if that 45 goes into the quad, it looks like, I know you held your hand where it went beside it, but I think that's more about,
Probably
Yeah,
right there.
yeah, I mean, just from scaling, from that car being there.
So the building itself would have to be in the variance.
I would think so.
Currently, C1, and C1 has a side setback of 12. So with the 3 times requirement, that's 36. Just doing the GIS measurement, it looks like it's about 26, 27 foot from the property line to the edge of the Quonset hut.
But is our, I don't know how long it's been C1, but it's probably grandfathered in because we changed those setbacks, what, 3 or 4 years ago?
Yes, yeah.
I just don't know how many times we change the zoning to where it automatically becomes non-conforming without addressing that. I mean, that's my concern.
Well, the question is whether or not the building itself will require a waiver
Or a variance.
or variance, I mean, should have said variance.
Well, so I still want to clarify, my concern is if, you never know what's going to happen in the future, you may sell it or something, and it's now C2.
Mhm.
Does everything in C2 doesn't require a conditional use permit?
No.
So something could come in there that wasn't really, that we wouldn't intend to be there. If they sold it and somebody came in and said, well, I want to do this. So we'd end up with something maybe that
we don't want to.
that may not have fit in there based on our comprehensive plan.
Exactly.
But just by, and you may never sell it, or something may come up and you may sell it in 2 years, and somebody else come in and do something totally different that doesn't require conditional use. and-
Well, I mean, well, that can be said for the building that's to the left of the station as well. That's, C2.
Is there, the building to the left is not C2, it's
No,
C1.
the, tractor
It's
repair
the
shop.
lawnmower repair. It's
Is it C2?
Yes, sir. So
Yeah.
that's not, you know, that's,
And that, we deal with that.
Yeah.
It's just whether or not, and we passed in the comprehensive plan, the ability to do some nodes.
oh, yeah.
Take advantage of convenience stores or things, or little centers. I mean, I think you can do this, and no one's gonna like this comment, but, I mean, it really sounds like, to correct it, it needs to be a PUD, which you do commercial PUDs, where you have a public hearing, it's a specific use for that one item.
Right.
You have your setbacks designed in your PUD document, which is a survey that shows where the building is, and for that specific use, under those specific conditions, it's allowed, and at whatever point, I mean, it's only allowed to do that. I mean, if you ever change that use, you either have to come back for another PUD approval, or you rezone it to something else at that time. And PUD is like a plan unit development. It's not necessarily residential. It's just a way to put what you have on the ground on paper and say, I want to do this use here with these setbacks, with this type of use. You define that use and everything that's there. But, I mean, that's just it's a type of rezoning. Instead of a C1 or a C2, it's called a PUD, which is kind of a custom layout with your own setbacks.
So just to clarify this too, if you're saying that if we go to C2, the setback's now 12, it then becomes the south side, then becomes 36, which gets into the building. That area within that
No,
36.
no. It was
The other-
36 in the existing zoning. It's already non-conforming.
Okay, so
It
it's
goes
already,
40,
45.
45, yeah.
so you can't put a car, you can't park cars in that
The
setback
building
area.
itself would have to require variance.
So you're gonna trigger, if you rezone it, you're gonna trigger needing a variance.
that's
before-
what
Yeah, that's what you were
Yeah, that's
indicating.
Currently, the building's legal non-conforming.
Okay, that's what I was saying.
and, I mean, technically how we've solved it in the past is we've required them to do a PUD to make it conform if we're gonna allow that use. But, I mean, you're either gonna have to go, we're gonna look the other way if we did rezone it to C2, and you're gonna have a setback with a building that's in the side setback, which would trigger a variance request.
He would have to come back for a variance. Okay. Maybe we just need to go through the public hearing and see what,
The only issue is, I think our bylaws still say it, if we push it to a public hearing, like we don't table it to a vote, and it gets turned down, you can't request any change in zoning for a year.
That's correct.
So I mean, if, I just wanted you to have the option of listening, if there was an opportunity to do a PUD to make it conform in the state it was in, which dictates you can only do what you're doing there with those buildings in their locations right now. I mean, you could do what you're doing until you decided you wanted to get out of it. But if you say, no, I want to see if we can rezone it and then go to conditional use, if the rezoning's turned down, you can't come back next month and do a PUD. Our bylaws, our ordinance says that if it's turned down, you can't come back for a zoning change for a year, correct?
I'm fairly certain, Colton's looking up, and I
I
remember that
yeah.
distinctly. If we do.
I
apply for
remember that
rezoning,
coming up
so you-
before.
Now, I guess the option would be whether or not he wants to withdraw that and come back, withdraw that at this point.
That's what I, yeah.
Yeah, and then come back as a PUD.
So what are the, like, specifics I need for the PUD?
Typically, you know what a survey looks like? It would be a drawing of your property that shows where all the existing buildings are, the existing gravel parking, anything you're gonna add, if you were gonna add anything. I mean, down to where the mailbox is at, to be honest with you. And then you would have hatched on there or drawn on there where you're gonna display your automobiles.
Okay.
You'd have, you know, we'd probably want to know where your septic system is, so you're not, it'd have to be drawn in an area, just a hatched or shaded area. You know, and then where your sign would be located. And then you would have some comments of your use being for only the sale of cars, would probably require in the PUD that there'd be no storage of non-running vehicles or any other items, you know, no mechanic shop, no car wash, no detail. All that would be on this if you will, survey document, and you would request PUD based on that use and that layout,
There's also, if I remember right, there's a requirement of green space too, a percentage.
which I
of
think
green
he would
space.
meet that.
Yeah, he's got it in the back, as long as it's designated on the site plan.
I don't know about commercial, but you
Yeah,
have to
I
check
just
that.
can't remember.
Because we've done commercial PUDs, there's not very many of them.
But that does require a public hearing, and you run the risk of doing all that and not passing either. But my thought is, if he passes these two things he's asking for tonight, then most likely all we'd need is a variance after that, am I correct?
That's right.
And most likely, if those two pass, the variance is gonna probably go through DRC, and
Yeah, I mean, we'd, I wasn't saying.
we'd almost have to pass
We'd almost
it.
have to pass if we pass the zoning.
Right.
But it's triggering a variance
Yeah.
request.
But if he goes ahead now, he can't come back with a PUD.
I'm not sure of that. I thought you could,
I think there is a.
I know you can't rezone to another zoning, but I don't know about the PUD.
Do we know that for sure?
I know that it says that no application for an amendment which has been denied wholly or partly by the city council shall be resubmitted for a period of 1 year from date of said denial.
So you think that's for the same request?
I think it's
same request.
I think
It'd be
it's
for the same C1 to C2.
You would
I think it would be the same request. I don't think it would affect him coming back for a PUD.
Only
wouldn't-
if substantial changes in conditions have occurred. Is what it says.
Well, I think changing from a C2 to a PUD would be substantial conditions. So I stand corrected on, you couldn't come back. If you were turned down, you could come back with a PUD application.
So if I continue now, I can come back with a PUD or I can?
Based on what he said, I think you can.
Depends on the vote too.
But I don't think if you don't pass tonight, for whatever reason, maybe you're probably not gonna pass with a PUD. Because it's gonna be the exact same thing, am I correct?
Except for when you zone, I want to address Amy's Amy's comments. I mean, right now, we're on the use from C1 to C2.
Right.
And the concern that maybe we're okay, and I'm just saying this as a hypothetical, maybe we're okay with the car lot, but may not be okay with what might come if the car lot's not still there.
Correct.
It solves that problem.
The PUD would solve that problem.
Right, but it's, if it goes to C2, I mean, and he decides to sell it 6 months from now, we may end up with something even worse.
But can he have assurance that if he does not go forward with this, he can come back with a PUD?
It'd have to be a public hearing with a vote.
I know, but he could come back.
He can
Oh, yeah, he
request
could
it.
come
It
back.
definitely answers the questions of if somebody comes back with another fittings, they can't do that with a PUD.
Correct.
So that's.
That solves
a
that
ideal
problem.
solution.
All we would be doing with a PUD would be really allowing this grandfathered use to continue
Mhm.
at the level it's at right now, basically.
Is there any commercial property that we've done a PUD for that he'd have an example?
There's a few on the list. I don't remember where we
But
did
if we
them
did a PUD, it's still C1 and would not allow for a small car lot, correct?
at. It
Right,
changes
'cause it'd be
the PUD zoning
specified.
classification.
Okay, gotcha.
It's a specific class, and it does have to go to city council too.
Did we find out if he can for sure, like say he doesn't pass tonight for whatever reason, he could come back with a PUD a month from now, 2 months?
Substantial changes in where the
I
details are.
believe so.
That was,
Really, it says it can go before city council, unless there's a substantial change. Resubmitted for a period of 1 year from date said denial except upon decision by the planning commission if substantial change in conditions have occurred.
But I think that's for the same request from the C1 to the C2. Is that not correct?
So quick question.
Should be.
Yes, sir.
So the station currently is owned as C1?
Yes,
And the adjacent building is also C1. So that building was the wood shop prior. Will that also fall into C1?
yes.
Okay. So say we go ahead for the C2 vote, doesn't go through, I can do your second option within a month or so, correct?
Well, that's what's up for interpretation, but it looks that way, yes, sir.
Okay. I mean, it's interpretation, I just want to make sure.
You need
for
to know
next
that.
month,
Yeah.
what's the same interpretation?
And I was just throwing out an idea that I mean, it's like Rick said, I mean, if we approve the rezone and the conditional use, I know they're tied together, we're probably gonna approve a variance, a specific variance
Have to.
for that building. We'd have to in order for him to operate.
Mhm.
Um,
The PUD appears to be the more.
It's a better option.
Okay.
It's a better option for him.
Yeah, it's just a little more
There's not so many variances or
Well, it has some
required with the PUD.
requirements on it that we can count on.
I mean, I don't wanna vote, but I mean, posture wise, you know, the room could be different. We need to hear some public comment on this. And you'd have the right to come back up, but, I mean, I see the problem with it going C1 to C2 and opening up any of these other uses. If he exists with what he has, I mean, what's our feelings about conditions on that use, if any, or even that use being allowed there under a,
Under C1,
Lance, can
well,
we,
under a PUD, I mean.
PUD, I don't know.
Lance, can we hear from public first? and
Yeah,
come
let's
back?
do that.
Because I'd like to hear what the
Because you
public
have the
says.
right to come back up. So, we're gonna open up for any public comment right now. Anybody in the public for or against, wanna just ask questions, yes, sir. If you don't mind, for the record, there's a sign in too, state your name and your address, please.
My name is Mac Edwards. I live at 3613 Spring Hill Road. My concern there is in one part of the criteria, CJ, you can correct me, is that the business that goes in there should meet the rural environment. Is that correct? I get, when I see the pictures like earlier that were displayed, does anybody else think that meets the rural environment up and down Spring Hill? Because to me, seeing a car lot even fashionably like that does not look appealing to me or my community. There's no sidewalks. People have been hit going up and down Spring Hill, laying in the ditches right there at the side of Roosevelt, because there's no sidewalks. The infrastructure's not there. We're ready for a lot of things, and it would be great, but we're not to that stage where we have that improved to the point that we can put more traffic and clutter in front of that where it distracts people looking off and driving. We already have plenty of wrecks right there in front of Dollar General and coming up the hill and all the way right there in front of the gas station at the intersections. We've already got too many people that have property loss and damage, and I don't feel as though that would serve any better for the community there, and I just live right up the street. And I'm not trying to be brash, I'm just trying to say vehemently that I don't believe that's a good idea. It's not a good choice to make, and it's not for the community. And when I found out about it, my concern here is I didn't know about it. I think there's supposed to be a sign. Is there supposed to be a sign out there showing?
Should be a
There should be a
Okay,
rezone.
well, I literally had to stop at the gas station, walk over and look at it because it's up against the building and blocked by 2 cars, a tree, and if you're traveling at any speed down that road, you cannot see that or find that sign nowhere. I would bear anybody right now to get in the car and drive by and try to find that sign.
I agree.
You just don't see it. Now, I don't really care about that, but I didn't know. And so it's last minute, and then I just feel that it's unsafe, and if more people in the community knew about it, and your idea of having the community speak on it, I think would be a great idea.
The one thing you hit on, I think the term that they were looking, the harmony of the neighborhood. The reason our comprehensive plan addressed C1 and C2 pods or nodes was because of the residential nature of Spring Hill Road. You're going to have certain areas where you're going to have, it's going to start. You know, I'm not saying this is that area or not, but it's it's what's in harmony with the rest of the neighborhood on any rezoning request. I think it's in our code that it needs to be in harmony with the neighborhood. May or may not be here. I'm not judging that. But I mean, we are going to have, the mayor announced it, and then I've overdone your time here, and the mayor overdid his. But we are going to update our comprehensive plan, and welcome anybody in the audience to come back through that discussion, because that's what drives this plan, is public comment from the public.
We just have a very congested, we have a very congested, trying to get out of there in the morning's already murder. I mean, we're single lane each way. And to add people coming and going, or any way being distracted with cars there, would just really do an issue.
So you're against this rezone?
Absolutely.
Thank you for your time. Anyone else?
Thank y'all for
I
hearing.
had a question though, just to clarify, we were talking about two different kinds of zonings. It really wouldn't matter to you, you're against having a car dealership there.
Absolutely.
Is that what it?
Absolutely.
am I
On
clear?
Highway 5, you're not, it's, car lots even there aren't surrounded by a lot of residential, and that's fine. You know, they don't have to have that clutter when they step out, or even the increase we've grown in infrastructure where it meets, we have sidewalks, fine. Spring Hill, it's not there, and I'm afraid it'd be terribly unsafe for people. It's already getting to a point where it's congested.
Typically, and we've way gone over our time, but typically, you know, if you're rezoning from a C1 to C2, you've got, you know, a larger scale, smaller scale business going to build a new facility on it, and they're going to do all the half-street improvements, which enlarges that, put the sidewalks in, do all the infrastructure. I mean, that was one of the reasons for the comments about the variance. I mean, we're dealing with an existing structure, an existing infrastructure. I mean, there's no plan to do sidewalks, to widen the road, to do any of that. So, I mean, thanks for your comments, and we'll see if anybody else in the audience. Yes, ma'am. And if you don't mind, state your name and address, where you live in the city, and then sign in also.
Yes, I am Brandy Henderson. I'm a realtor, and I also live off Spring Hill.
What's the address?
At 3517 Stillman Loop.
Okay. Thank you.
I wanted to ask a question for clarification. Is this a grandfathered situation, because I believe they're already selling vehicles there?
No, I think, I'm going to describe it the way I understand it. They purchased the property and probably didn't realize it wasn't zoned properly, and then came in later to do cars, and were told at that point that it would have to be rezoned. And so trying to utilize what improvements are there to adhere to their business model. Is that fair?
So what you're saying is they're not allowed to sell cars, but yet they're still selling cars there, correct?
There's 2 vehicles there currently.
I agree.
As of this morning.
Yes. That's what's blocking the sign.
That have for sale signs on them.
So they didn't do the convenience store permits, and now they're doing stuff there.
Which would involve a code enforcement issue. I mean,
Definitely.
so I mean, it'll definitely be checked out, but I mean,
And my additional question is, how many vehicles are they planning to sell?
I believe he
at
said
one
15 to
time?
20 when I asked him.
Oh, I missed that.
But that
per their request, if we got that far, the next public hearing would be conditions in my notes, and I'm sure these other guys have done it. We could put however many we want them to sell as a or not want, but we feel like would be necessary on that particular piece of property. So we could tell them, hey, we'll approve this conditional use, but you can only have 10 display vehicles, or 15, or 12, or whatever that condition. The thing about a conditional use, you can place conditions on that use if we get to the next.
And what happens if they are approved for that, but they continue to do things they're not supposed to do?
Then they'll receive the code back.
Yeah, they could get cited and it could go to court.
I mean, don't we already deal with some people that are doing the same thing, not too far behind that piece of property?
Not aware of that particular property, that we have any specific, but we do deal with that.
Yeah, kind of back in that residential area back
Colton,
there.
do we have how close can they put these cars to Spring Hill Road, to the white line? Is there a certain setback, or can they just
They'd
push
have
it
to
real
meet
close?
The minimum setback for that C2, which would be a 15-foot.
From the white line of the?
From the edge of the road, or what?
From right away.
So you basically have just a little 15 feet till you're in a car lot?
If you see that car that looks about 20 feet long, I mean, you'd have one row of cars across.
right.
in front
That,
of the-
Plus you count for a drive too.
Right away currently.
You have a drive, you have to have.
So
And
that
I
would
think-
impede trying to turn right or left out of there, really, if the cars are that.
And I think the right-of-way actually comes further into that sign than that,
Yeah,
because if you
Well, it's
remember,
pretty close, because if you notice, it's right there at the edge of the canopy of the existing convenience store, and that's about where it's.
but that can't, when they came in on their site plan, it
That
was,
See, that was not, that's not the normal right-of-way for an arterial.
Yeah.
That's a lot narrower. If that
Right.
was to be developed, that right-of-way line would come further west.
correct. Because, y'all, we used to widen Spring Hill as wide as we could get, couldn't we? Didn't we?
Well, it's a-
If you look further south, when they widened it for, the Highway 5 improvements, you can see what effect the widening was.
But we-
Spring Hill is a 50-foot right-of-way.
Right.
Our master street plan calls for a, is it
Well, if it's got a
80?
trail on it, it'll be 90 feet.
But it, in its current existence, it's a 50-foot right-of-way, except where we've taken more, because it was a county road, and when we took it in the city, it had a 50-foot right-of-way, which is typically 25 foot from the center line.
That's correct.
Any other questions, ma'am?
No other questions.
Okay.
I'm against it, though.
Okay, thanks for your
Thank
time.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the public speak for, against, questions, comments? I'm supposed to limit you to 2 minutes. I've been.
You've been lenient.
Well, I've been lenient.
Slap
Jim,
your
I'll
hand.
get
Have Andrea here with her timer.
So, other than the mayor, I was pretty serious with him in his speech. Anybody else?
Abusing his power.
Okay, so now the applicant can come back up, ask us any more questions. You heard the public comments. You know, we can try to answer questions and move.
Yeah, only my question, as we cited, we have the other lot, we decide to have few over here because we bought the property already, it's almost 2 years, which we're paying $2,300 each month. Has nothing there. It used to be a commercial building, they doing wooden work or everything there. I thought we're gonna use it, if we're gonna rent it, no one gonna pay the rent also if it's not allowed to do anything. That's why we decide we can have it, a good car, which with few car we're keeping over here, to at least generate some revenue where we come on our mortgage also. I do respect our neighbors, whatever they say, we follow it, but as we have the huge building back there, we have facility 10, 15, 20 cars parked inside. Just keeping 1 or 2 cars outside or put the bigger board on where people can see, we sell the car. And on Spring Hill, there are many businesses like that. Like our gas station, next to gas station is also the dog shop or those animals, smaller, is always crowded over there. Even people park on our station, but that's got the crowded there too. And next to smaller engine, they're repairing there too. It's already, everything is over there. I don't think so it's going to be painful to having a clean, smaller car lot. That's the request, we have it, of course, we can write it down, each and everything, what the city council wishing to do it, and we're not gonna cross the law. If you allow us 10 car, we're gonna keep the 10 car. If we're not, we don't need the facility to wash the car, or detail the car, or mechanic thing, or do the oil change, no. We don't need to, we have those facilities already. We're just wishing to have some certain car, a decent car in the decent area, we're gonna have it. That's all we have to.
I'm gonna
see.
try to address your comments. One, I mean, you bought it and it was on C1.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we have to assume that you knew it was C1, or whoever sold it to you was C1, or you investigated the C1, but it was C1.
Yes.
And so, anything that's allowed in a C1 zoning, you can do. So, I mean, I don't have the list, but there's a list on our website. Whether you rent it to somebody
Yeah.
or you do a business, if it's allowed in C1 by right, you have the ability to operate a C1 allowed business on that piece of property.
Yes, sir, that's our
So-
first experience.
State law dictates that once you change, I mean, we do listen to the public and we do comprehensive plans and we try to adhere to those, we adhere to those comprehensive plans and changes. But we have to notify the public, you do, of that change, which is why you're here. And we have to have a public hearing and go through the merits of the change, whether it's for the benefit of the public or not. Because
Yes.
you're changing the use. I mean, you know, I think we all understand what your request is, that you just want to do 5 or 10 cars on it. The process would be to change it to C2, because we don't allow a car lot of any kind in C1, which is what it was when you bought it. And if that was to get approved, then you would come in, the next item would be a conditional use where we would tell you how many cars you can keep out there.
Right.
And so I think we'll call for a vote if that's what you want to do. But I think the hangup is going to be the change, and keeping in harmony with the public and the neighbors and what the vision for the city of Spring Hill Road was supposed to be, which is not C2. And so, I think a lot of the items, if C2 businesses were going to be allowed there, all the items that we're concerned about, I think, could be taken care of in conditional uses, things that we would say you can't do A, B, C, D, E, or F. But I think in this hearing, it's about the C1 to C2. And so, any other comments regarding that change? Because everything you said would be addressed in the next hearing. So, anybody else? Any questions, comments? Okay, we're going to call for a vote. If it passes, we'll go into the next hearing. If it doesn't pass, that item will be removed. Per our bylaws, I know you cannot come back in for a year to try to go back to the C2. Unless there's a substantial change. And I can't
PUD.
see.
You could
You
come back
could
with
try
PUD.
PUD, and that would be up to you. You could go a different zoning class. You could go to residential or anything else, but you just can't come in for a year to a C2 is the way I understand it. So, okay?
Okay, awesome.
All right, so we will have a roll call vote.
Speed,
No.
Staton,
No.
Edwards,
No.
Johnson,
No.
Irwin,
No.
Linfield.
And I'm a no. You're supposed to state, most of the time, I was always told our no. The reason is our comprehensive plan does not allow everything I've already said, and that it's not in the harmony of what is in our comprehensive plan for Spring Hill Road.
And I'll tell you, my no is concerns that you might sell the business later or the property, and somebody can come in and do something else that might even be less conforming to the neighborhood under that C2 zoning. Also, some concerns about the sign placement and not enough public knowing about the meeting. The most important thing is to make sure the public knows about the meeting.
Okay, that's,
Those are my two concerns, and
So, it was denied. You have the right to appeal it to city council, which you have that right, or I said, come back in with a different request, but you can't come for the same request for you. And we're gonna move on through, the item 11 won't be on because it would have to be rezoned to a C2 in order to hold a conditional use permit for that type of a use. So I would entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close the public hearing.
second.
Motion, second, any discussion? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. You're free to stay or go, as far as this meeting goes. We are gonna move through our old business, which we have none. We have some new business. There was an item that we need to have added to the agenda, and I think
I'd like to make a motion that we add the Genwell to the
I'd second
agenda.
that motion.
we have a motion and a second to add the Genwell building and some facade changes to the agenda. Is there any discussion or questions? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're going to this was a building that was approved as a site plan. It meets the minimum requirements by DRC. There were some changes made to the facade that the percentages are a little different. I'm going to let Colton drag us through it and give his recommendation.
Yes, so this was just an extra, or kind of late coming in, but it's kind of a minor thing here. So this did come through DRC and was approved, the site plan for this building. It's just the facades that are coming before you guys for a non-standard building. So I passed out a printout to you guys, and highlighted are the specific portions of the commercial design standards that aren't met, and then also highlighted the elevations so you can match them up more easily. So with our code, it allows 30% of a sign wave metal paneling, and then also just a general metal panel with concealed fasteners, 30%, or I'm sorry, 20% for each of those. And then there's a requirement on the front facade for doors and windows to be comprised of 30% of that front facade. That's something that wasn't met. It was actually, the front facade is comprised of 15.8% on that. And then you can see on the rear elevation, the east elevation, and then the west, which the rear is going to be the north elevation there. The sign metal A is at a 40%, but their type B metal was at 16.6, so it came in below. And then the same thing with the east elevation as well as the west elevation. Their sign A came in a little bit higher than the 20%, but their type B was well below that percentage there. For the, sorry, I went to a different section of the code earlier. I'll try to pull that back up. I was on design standards.
It's a great looking building.
Yes, so for a non-standard building, there's a couple things that have to be required from the planning commission for their findings. And that is no discernible public benefit would be gained by requiring an alternative design. Proposed design represents an innovative use of non-standard building materials to the extent that it's in harmony with the visual aspects of the location, area, and community as a whole. And then the proposed construction meets the spirit and intent of this section of the zoning code. The commercial design standards originally were put in place and passed, added to our code because we didn't want buildings coming in that just are square metal buildings, that look like a prefab building comprising of everything. We wanted buildings to look good, look nice for our city. And I think that's something that's being shown here. They've used different architectural materials and then also varied kind of the depth of the building as well. It's not just a kind of a plain box building.
What's your recommendation?
Our recommendation is to approve it, the planning department's recommendation, based on that intent, meeting the code and the design of
Looks
Can you show
good.
me where this building's going to be on Parkway, please?
it. Yes, certainly.
Is this the same location they want to put it on as they did when they first came in?
It's across the
It's
street.
it's on the other side of Parkway.
So
It's
this,
on the east side.
yes, so right here at the corner of Parkway and Highway 5, here's the Big Red station.
Okay.
Or Old Big Red, that's Circle K now. So this is actually gonna be going right here.
Okay.
Where that house is, on the corner of Christie Lane.
So they moved it quite a bit down from where it was.
They were across the street up
It
there.
was
right across
supposed to be across the street.
So it kind of matches in with the school and the gyms and all of that
I
kind of stuff.
believe
Okay.
they purposely designed this building to complement the gym buildings behind it. Same architect that did all the
Gotcha.
design of these and the.
Looking out of
Elliott
Big Red
Stewart-
corporate
Stewart.
headquarters.
The architect,
So it was
No, they have their own.
get that.
Right.
C-
It looks good.
CW, was it Lewis?
I just want to make sure we weren't putting it somewhere weird,
Looks nice.
Well, as the administrator of that plan, you recommend approval.
Yes.
Any other questions? Got any more comment?
Not really, I was just gonna point out that on the page 2, I don't have it pulled up, pull it here, but the north elevation, which is the rear of the building, that's the one that has the most percentage of metal. But as you can see, it doesn't look anything crazy, it doesn't look like a straight up square building there. It's all gonna have concealed fasteners.
Dalton, what's the, kind of the dark brown or green material? That said siding of some sort. What type of siding is that? Do you know?
So the
Is it wood? I'm just curious.
darker brown
Yeah.
color, that's their type B panel. So it's going to be,
Is it a metal or a?
It says
it's a metal paneling.
pre-finished
Looks like
metal
wood.
siding type B.
It doesn't look like wood, but it's
Good
kind of like
vision.
It's a texture.
it's kind of like a flat, almost boxy. It almost, I can't really describe it. But I know it's kind of just a metal paneling that's more squared off.
Yeah.
Their type A is more of a wave style, versus this is kind of more of a flat surface metal panel. It's almost similar to like a ACP, I think, but it's an actual metal instead of an aluminum composite.
Looks good.
All right, any other questions of Colton? We'll have a roll call vote to approve a non-standard building because of the percentages that they were on.
Johnson,
Yes.
Stanton,
Yes.
Speed,
Yes.
Irwin,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Yes. Okay. We have no other new business, and I would entertain another motion.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, aye.